It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
So my friends, let me read something to you. Dear children, today I am calling you to pray even more until you feel the holiness of forgiveness in your heart. There must be holiness in the families, little children, because there is no future for the world without love and holiness. Because in holiness and joy, you give yourselves to God, the Creator, who loves you with immeasurable love. This is why He sends me to you. Thank you for having responded to my call. Who are we talking about? The Blessed Mother. Very important lady in our lives. Now, we've heard of Medjugorje in Bosnia. And there are people who really believe that there are apparitions there. And there are people who are saying, well, we have these religious fanatics who want to go on these trips. But the interesting thing is that what we believe sometimes is so important in our lives. And boy, do we need it today more than ever. I don't care whether you're Catholic, whether you're Protestant, whether you're Jewish, or whatever. The point is, we need this love and understanding for human beings. Today, I have 3 people who are in Medjugorje. I think it'll be an interesting show, folks. And whether you believe or you don't believe, just listen, and then you decide. We're not here to lecture by no means. Father Brian Clarke from Holy Rosary and Transfiguration, right? Or is it
Holy Name of Jesus?
Holy Name of Jesus is the pastor. And we're joined by Kathy Corrado, who just recently was a pilgrim who went out to Medjugorje, and Judy Martini, certainly no stranger to the Hazleton area. Now, let's talk about Medjugorje and, what's happening there and why, does the Pope accept it? Do Catholics accept it? We were talking before the show, Father. What's the story there?
Well, people ask, especially when we decided that we would make a pilgrimage, certain people said, well, I've heard of Medjugorje and it's not approved by the church. Now, there are other places where we have the apparitions in Fatima and Lourdes and Our Lady of Knox. So those places, those sites, the apparitions have been investigated by the church and stated that they believe that these to be true, that the Blessed Mother appeared there. Medjugorje, there is no such declaration on the part of the church and the Holy Father yet, but there's a good reason for that. So what happens is these messages are still ongoing, that the Blessed Mother, as they say, supposedly is appearing to 6, they were children at the time. It's about 38 years now that she's been appearing. And what happens is that with the church, if messages are still being received, they wait to conduct any kind of investigation till the apparitions, the appearances, the messages all cease, so they could evaluate all the information and make sure that everything is in line and keeping with the Catholic teaching of the Church. The messages typically begin with her saying, this is a message to the world. So she'll say, my dear children, and part of, you read one of those messages, and that she's saying, this is what needs to happen. It's a time of conversion. And the messages are always messages of something that would be of benefit to those who hear it. In fact, the Holy Father, as I mentioned, that the church hasn't investigated to approve this, but he did send one of the archbishops from Rome to spend time there, to live there. In fact, he's still in residence there. And he brought back what he observed there and the nature of the messages. And it was so convincing to the Holy Father. First he said, before he was leery about pastors leading parish pilgrimages, he said, not only do I allow that now, I actually encourage it. So the Holy Father, in hearing these messages and how encouraging and how in keeping with church teaching, but also too, speaking of conversion. And it is something, as you said, this is what the world needs now, the love of God, but also that conversion, to really look seriously at how we're living our lives and how we treat one another. So you find that in just about every message that the Blessed Mother gives. They're not personal messages to the seers, to those who are receiving the apparitions. There is some of that, but every message will then have a component for the world. She says, I want you to give this message or this part of the message to the world to be shared. And it's always uplifting, encouraging, and repeating and reiterating the love that God has for each and every one of us.
Judy, was this the first time you've gone to Medjugorje?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
But how did this thing start with these 6 children?
Division, yeah.
Are they children?
Yeah,
or,
they were ages 10 to 17.
Okay, similar
were
like
6.
Fatima or the Lourdes.
Right. The Blessed Mother appears to children. And a lot of times my students will say that. They'll say, you know, why isn't she appearing to adults? Why is it always that she picks children? And, you know, children, they believe, you know, and they listen, and they're not skeptical. Where if she would have appeared to an adult, someone might, again, question, and you'll have the skeptics. Well, like, what do you mean you're the Blessed Mother? But children were just like fascinated by her, and she's always appeared to children. So this was ages 10 through 17, these 6 children that she appeared to. And now they're in their 40s and 50s, and she's still appearing to them. That's why Father said they can't do anything yet until the last vision is done, and then the church could go on.
How do you know the last vision is done?
I guess the visionaries will tell. I'm sure they will tell that it will be the last time.
What are the visionaries saying? I mean, because and I think it was at Fatima where they were seeing the Blessed Mother, and this big, tremendous crowd was there. But the people did not see the Blessed Mother, but the children saw the Blessed Mother.
Still today.
Yeah. What are they? What are some of the messages? And anyone can jump in here. That the Blessed Mother is telling these children, or these visionaries.
She starts out with, you know, always peace, the peace, and peace in the world. You need to have peace, and to do this, she gives you what's called 5 stones, and it's the stones that she associates with David and Goliath. Like David had those stones when he killed Goliath. Well, these are your 5 stones that you should fight evil and that you should pray for world peace. And that's what she continues in all of those messages. She mentions the 5 stones all the time.
Kathy, Corrado, you went to, is this the first time you were in Medjugorje?
Yes.
Okay. What was your experience like?
Well, it was very spiritual. And I had gone there also to meet a family that my mom and dad stood with 7 times, and Davy once. They've been to Medjugorje, and they met this beautiful family that houses people. And I've conversed with them, written letters on the phone for 20 years, and I finally got to meet them. And it was added beauty. It was just a wonderful experience. Their son, Valdemir, was 8 at the time. Now he's 28. And his brother, Marco, was 6, and now he's 26. And it took me 20 years to get there, to meet them. And when we went to their homes every day, their house, I met with the parents too. We stood with them a while. And she was bringing out pictures that my father brought over of my children when they were young, growing up, and a big statue of Padre Pio for them. And something very touching. Every time my father went there, he would bring clothes for the refugees. He'd go shopping and bring them bags of clothes. And then people on the trips would start doing the same thing. And believe it or not, still to this day, there's people bringing clothes over, and they call it Ned's Way. And it was just extremely touching to hear all these stories, you know, about how my father touched people from another part of the world. And then being on Apparition Hill, I was there twice, where the Blessed Mother first appeared. And just the sense of her being there, and all the people from all around the world on their knees, their bare feet, all ages, walkers, being carried up, saying rosaries. And I think I've never seen anything more precious than a man holding a rosary bead, praying, kneeling in front of the lady. It's just so touching, and people crying, and it's just the smell of roses and tranquility. And you leave that hill, that mountain, and you just feel renewed. And you take that feeling with you. I still have it. I'll have it with me forever. I think I'm like, it's like this much closer to heaven. You carry that peace in you. And it's just simply amazing.
If you just look at our world today, and if you look at our society today, and you look at what's happening with the media and how Satan is having a field day, okay, destroying our young people, destroying morals, destroying everything. And then when you try to fight it, you hear, well, you got to get with the times. Well, I don't know what the times mean, other than, what basic life and what we're, you know what I mean, Brian? It's like, so when you start talking about different things, you talk God, etc., it's sad, and particularly with the clergy, okay, how Satan just came in and destroyed the aura that the clergy, there's 99.9% of the clergy that are doing their job every day, trying to save souls. And sure, people fall.
Sure.
They fall. It's called being human. That's why we have confession, okay? But yet the press was to just come down and clobber the Catholics as much as they could, okay? And it's sad, it's sad. So when you have, these kind of things, and I'm not lecturing here, but I talked to a person, I said, well, were you in church? They, be in church? Oh, you'll never see me in church. And no, I said, oh, I'll see you in church. When you die, that's when I'll see you in church, okay? But the point is, doesn't make any difference whether you're Catholic, Protestant, etc. Judy, in your experience, all right, because, you become religious, they call you religious fanatics, okay? Mm-hmm. And you get people who,
Sure.
Some shows like this, some people get very uptight, okay, because we're talking about religion. We're talking about, oh my God, we're talking about God, the Blessed Mother, these are things that are taboo, when you listen to some of the things, and I'm not being political, but when you listen to some of the people that just think abortion is perfectly okay, it just, as a school teacher, I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, when I went, as soon as I came back and got into the classroom again, I said to the kids, the thing that impressed me the most, I have been to the Holy Land, I've been to churches all over. The thing with Medjugorje is once you're there, you feel it as soon as you get there. The churches are packed, Sammy, and this is not pilgrims. These aren't pilgrims. These are townspeople. They bring chairs and sit in the aisle. You can't get a seat. And my pictures show that. And that's the one thing I said to the kids. I said, now look at this. This is a Friday night at 7:30. I look at this. And they have 7:30 in the morning mass for people to go to work. They come in with their suitcases. They don't give a sermon. They have mass, and then they go to work. It's jam-packed. You couldn't get near. That's what impressed me the most, was the crowds. I took more pictures of people in church just to show people that it wasn't even a pilgrim time, and we couldn't get near. But a good thing when we went in November, a good thing was that there wasn't the crowds, because we walked into everything. We walked into the church with no problem. The risen Christ statue, we walked right up to the risen Christ. You would have to wait hours to get to these places.
Father, as a priest, okay, how does that affect your spirituality?
I'm glad you asked that, because Judy and Kathy did such a wonderful job of explaining that there's a certain experience that you have when you go over there. Because for myself too, even priest friends would say, so you're going to Medjugorje? Because even some of the priests would say, well, it's not approved yet, or do you believe that the Blessed Mother's appearing there? So you get all of that. Sure. But what happened was, I did have a close friend of mine go over, and he said, I didn't go over to find out whether or not, or to prove to myself that she is appearing, she's not appearing, or I just went over because I heard that it's such an incredibly spiritual, uplifting experience. And that's what the 25 of us on this pilgrimage found out. It was exactly as the two of them described. And Judy mentioned those 5 stones. One of the 5 stones is confession. The Blessed Mother's messages always come down to conversion, and if I had to explain it in one word, or sum it up in one word, it would be confession. Because confession is just so pivotal to conversion, that you have to be willing to say, yes, I'm not doing what I should be doing, or I'm not trying to put God first in my life, and I just really need to change that. And when I would go and hear confessions, it was such a great opportunity. There was another priest, a classmate of mine, on the pilgrimage with us, and we would go over, and they would invite all the priests who were at the Mass during the day, and they had Masses all throughout the day, and as Judy mentioned, jam-packed. During the pilgrim season, they can't fit them in the church, which holds 400 or 500 people. They've added several hundred benches outside. They typically get 7,000 people a day for daily mass with the pilgrims. They have 2 jumbotrons outside, and and the confessions, the lines are just endless. So we would go at 5 o'clock when they would start. They'd have, looked like 20, 30 telephone booths. Now that's not even enough during the regular pilgrim season, because they have priests on all the hundreds of park benches to hear confession. We pick the signboard for your language, and I can't tell you how many languages, and people come in that are Catholic, non-Catholic, Jewish, you mentioned it, from all over the world. They've journeyed there, and some of them from great distances, just because they felt called. They wanted some faith in their life and some experience to help them with that. And they said this was the high point of their whole experience, to come there and then to go to the confessional and really have that confession and to say through the priest to God why they were there and what they were hoping for. And the tears would be shed. There would just be, it was such a change and such an uplifting, that feeling that Kathy mentioned. You have that, and it never leaves. And all 25 of us in the beginning, when we were going over, said, it seems that everybody goes to Medjugorje, they want to go back again. I wonder if we'll feel that way. So we wonder. After a day or two, we said, no, we're not wondering anymore. And by the end, we had this little prayer session, and we shared. Almost everybody went around the table, and everyone was in tears, talking about the experience. And people would say, well, when you went there, when we got back, they'd say, what did you see? Where did you go? Did you go all over? No, we just stayed in the hotel. We went to church. We prayed. And what else? And it would be like, no, that's what we did. But there was so much. It was so full. It was so fulfilling, as you both mentioned. And it was such a just life-changing experience. And that's, especially in the confessional, for me as a priest, I just felt so privileged. And over there, and you know, Satan is attacking families, attacking the clergy, but family values, tearing people apart. And when they get there, they're like, I just needed this. That's what people would say.
And that's, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
Who doesn't need to feel their mother's love?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And she is our mother, and she's just,
you feel it.
She's just there.
You feel it as soon as you walk
She's
into
there.
the little village.
And you smell roses like out of the clear
Everywhere.
blue, and there's no roses around.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
And we need this more than ever, because, as you said, Father, they're doing everything to destroy the family.
Right.
They're doing everything to destroy the morals that some
Absolutely.
people, family life, you know, and then when you start talking about these things, then they think, well, you're anti this and you're anti, no, you're not anti anything. You're just being human and living what the Bible tells us to do. And it's very sad. But when I come back, folks, I'm talking to Father Brian Clarke, and who is the pastor of Holy Rosary, and is it
Holy Name of Jesus.
Holy Name of Jesus? We know as Transfiguration. Judy, Martini, and Kathy Corrado, they were pilgrims to Medjugorje. When I told people that I have them coming on my show, it was amazing how many people said, "Oh, we were there, Sammy. We were there, Sammy. And this we learned. This we learned." And so, if anything we get out of the show today is think a little bit. Okay, we live in a very troubled, crazy world, but once we lose our foundation. You know, once we lose that foundation of what we're all about, and we lose our family values, we're done. We're done. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember, 24/7. SSPTV.com, or go to YouTube for those of you who don't have cable, and just search SSP TV, and all our shows are there. In Pottsville, 7 to 11 every evening on Channel 190, in Wilkes-Barre, Mountaintop in Kingston on Channel 92, Saturdays and Sunday evenings from 7 to 11 p.m., and in Lackawanna County, Scranton area, every Sunday and Saturday morning from 8 to 11 p.m. We're talking to Father Brian Clarke, who along with 2 people were on a pilgrimage to Medjugorje, Bosnia, and Kathy Corrado and Judy Martini Joya. Some of the experiences, Judy, that people experienced there, what were some of them we were talking about?
Myself, we went the one day to the Risen Christ statue, and everybody else had went up Apparition Hill. So they were all climbing the hill, and my friend Monica and I couldn't go up the hill. I went up like maybe about 2 feet, and then I knew I couldn't go anymore. So we went that day to the Risen Christ statue. So we go to the statue, and there's a gentleman standing there, and he motioned for us to come by him, and he was hugging the one leg of the risen Christ and asked us for our little wipes, because this statue weeps, but you never know when it's going to weep. And the little teardrops come out of the statue. So he's pointing to us, and we're giving him the cloths, and he was wiping, and at that point the statue was weeping. Little teardrops.
Saw it?
Yep, actually saw it. And I have pictures, little teardrops. So he gave me, and he gave my friend Monica the cloths, and then after we thanked him, and Monica said to him, "Do you want a cloth?" And he just went, "No." He had on a brown tunic, and it looked like a robe to me, almost like a Franciscan robe. And we put our heads down for just a second, and he was gone. When we looked up, he disappeared.
See, now people will think you're nuts.
I know, exactly.
Yeah.
But I have pictures, but that's not even it, not even to prove it. It's because I know that God sent that angel to us, because I was so upset that I couldn't go up that hill. And I knew that I wanted to go up that hill, and I was forcing myself for spite. I was going to go up that hill. And Father Toomey helped me, like, to go up a little bit. And I knew it. I knew I just couldn't. It was such a steep hill. But God sent that angel because he knew how upset I was.
Kathy, what's some of the stories that you heard?
I would like to speak about the statue of the risen Christ too. It's just simply amazing, because from the knees down is where the drippings come. And would you say it's solid brass, Father, the statue? Solid. And Valdemir had told me that years ago they took samples of the drippings, and it's human sweat. It's actual human sweat. And what more can you think of is when Jesus died on the cross, the sweat was just coming out of him. And you can just see it beating and draining down.
So we learn, Father, and we're all sinners, especially this guy right here. But the messages, when you hear things like this, and how much, because, I saw a picture once of Jesus and his head down, and about the abortion, and the quotation was, "This must stop," and what Mother Teresa said, and yet, and I'm doing a full show on abortion in April. It's going to be very educational. I'm not lecturing the people, but when you hear people saying, "I'm 100% pro-choice," and killing of unborn babies, and when they, and you know what? And maybe they need to be educated, okay? Right. And we have compassion for them. But I talked about messages. What do we learn? What does Kathy learn? What does Judy learn? What did I learn from coming back from Lourdes? What did my wife learn? And we all have these experiences, and as a priest. And believe me, I want to tell you this. I pray for you, priest. I really do. You need all the prayer.
Absolutely.
You believe me.
Absolutely.
And everyone should pray for the clergy, because you need it, okay? And we thank God we have people like you and a lot of great priests out there. What do we do with these messages, and how do we hope that it softens people's hearts and gets to them and lets them understand that we could have a great world here?
I find myself referring to the messages often, because people will ask me, well, do you believe the Blessed Mother's appearing over there? Or what signs did you see, or the miracles? But Kathy and Judy did a good job of just mentioning, we're not going over there to prove to ourselves or to anyone, but if you look at the fruits of what's happening there and the messages, it just makes so much sense. It's such good, solid direction and spiritually uplifting to have that conversion experience. And it is, because that's what happens. And as Judy mentioned too, you see there are pictures we were taking of the church just jam-packed, and there was a Friday night, and then a Saturday night you'd have the daily mass, you would have a little talk, we'd have a holy hour, and the last night before we left Saturday night, the holy hour is at 9 o'clock at night on a Saturday, and at 10 o'clock at night, well, it was pouring rain, and you look around, there was a standing room only, jam-packed, parents with little babies in a carrier or whatever, covered in plastic. And at 10 o'clock, they had to flash the lights to get everybody to leave. They just didn't want to leave, and they were the locals. And it's uplifting, because the messages are so reaffirming that God loves us, that the love of God through the Blessed Mother, she's letting us know that, and it helps us. So again, we don't need to prove. Is she appearing? Is she not? It doesn't matter. We knew that when we were going over that none of the visionaries would be present. We weren't looking to see that or to see a miracle. But then those things tend to happen, and things that are meant to be, because you see it all around. People who are meant to go.
I'm going to ask a dumb question now. Of course, I ask a lot of dumb questions. Would you go back?
Absolutely.
Judy?
Yeah.
Kathy?
I'm there.
Yep. In a heartbeat.
Well,
I'm
you know,
there.
it's when you talk about messages, and I'll close in this, is sometimes you're troubled throughout the week, and we go to Mass, or whatever church you go to. Okay, nothing's going to be Catholic but then the priest or minister delivers a homily, and that homily all of a sudden sometimes just like hits you right in the face.
Right.
And say, oh boy, you know, and you feel refreshed when you leave.
A great description of how you felt with all of this.
Right. Father, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, my pleasure.
And Judy, thanks for getting my
Show you
son
my
this.
shirt.
Show the shirt. What does it show? This is what? Walk with Gospa.
Gospa is Croatian for Our Lady. And you'll never walk alone.
Sammy's coming out to take a closer. Now, you walk with Gospa, and they call that's
Gospa's Our Lady.
You'll never walk
Walk
alone.
alone.
Yeah, Medjugorje, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's a rewarding experience. I know, Kathy, you're a firm believer in the Blessed Mother.
Absolutely.
And Judy, you've always been great. And well, this guy here, we have some questions. No,
Absolutely.
we always hear Father Grippy thinks you're a saint. I tell you that. And there's another great. You know, I have a lot of my friends are priests, and I kid with them, etc. But you know, I have so much respect for what you do. I really do, and I wish you good health. Okay, we need to hang around for at least 30 years. Then you can retire. Okay.
Sam, thank you very much.
My pleasure, folks. Remember, 24/7 ssptv.com. We're not here to lecture anybody. We're just here to educate, and hopefully, a prayer once in a while helps a lot. I pray the Rosary every day, and believe me, I'm a sinner, but it's important because you need that guidance sometimes in life. We'll see you next time.